everybody, welcome back to Ride the Six Motorcycle channel. We are now in 2023. I haven't made a video for a couple weeks because I was actually 3 or 4 provinces away. I was in Nova Scotia for Christmas. I haven't been home since about the 23rd of December, and I got back around the 7th of January. So kind of missed working on the bikes. I didn't really have much to do down there, just visiting family. I hope you all had a good Christmas. I hope you all had a good New Year's. We're back in 2023. We're ready to get back on the ZX-636. Alright guys, let's get right to it. We're going to try to start this bike up in this episode. In episode 2, I hit the bike with juice, and it looks like the bike is alive. So the next step now, let's get this thing started. We're going to continue working on this auction find 2006 Kawasaki Ninja ZX-636. I've got the airbox back in place. I've got it all bolted down. Everything looks good and tight under here. It's all secured. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop in the K&N air filter. I've had it soaking overnight, so I've cleaned that up a little bit. I've cleaned the airbox out as much as I can. So we're going to get that air filter in. We're going to throw our injection back on here on the bike. And then we are going to get the tank reinstalled. And we're going to try to start this bike up, guys. So here is our K&N air filter, guys. If you want to know what the part number is, it is KA6005. It's got like an angled edge on it. This can really only go installed one way inside your airbox. You can't really go wrong. I've had this soaking overnight. I've cleaned it all up, so it's just like new again. Okay, let's push that down. Okay, so there we go. The filter's in the bike. Here is our filter cover. Alright, we're going to start from the middle. Not that it matters, guys. This is just a cover. There's no specific torque settings or anything here. Don't mind the noise in the background. Probably just my neighbors starting up. Notice I don't use any powered tools, guys. I like to put everything back together by hand. You get a much better feel for the tightness of the bolt. So you don't want to over tighten anything or strip anything. So I was kind of happy to see that we actually had a K&N air filter on this bike. It's always a plus. It means that someone did somewhat care about this motorcycle. They didn't just run it to the ground. Unfortunately, someone stole their bike, I'd say, and they were left bikeless for a little bit. So these bolts, I'm just going to kind of hand tighten them, guys. I'm not going to crank them in too hard. So there we go. Airbox is in. You can see I've actually cleaned it up a fair bit. Air filter's in, cover's on. Next thing we're going to tackle here is our fuel injection. So let's grab our fuel injectors here. There is a gasket around the back of this. I'm going to make sure it is actually in place. It looks pretty good. Let's see what happens. Alright, let's put this back in place gently. Let's see, is our gasket sitting good? Yes, gasket looks like it's sitting good. Okay, for these bolts, guys, this is an 8mm bolt. There may be a torque setting here. I'm going to check the manual. I'm not sure, and there actually may be a sequence, but I suspect maybe not, but I will double check just to make sure. Actually, what I'll do is I'll grab my socket here and I'll run these down just by hand. So this is an 8mm socket. I'm just going to run them down by hand. I'm not going to crank them in tight or anything right now. Everything's going back into place pretty nicely. Hope I didn't speak too soon. Alright, so I'm just going to hand tighten these down, guys. I'm not going to torque them at the moment. I will see if there's a torque spec in that manual. I'll be right back. So I'm looking at the manual here, guys. I found this nozzle assembly mounting bolts. I assume that's the piece that we're talking about. So the torque is 6.9 Newton meters or 61 inch-pounds. So they are not very tight at all. Let me go tighten that up. So I've tightened these down to 6.9 Newton meters as specified in the manual. Now we can put our electrical connections back in place here. We'll start on the far end. Get my fat fingers out of the way. And last but not least, this right here. This is probably, I'd say like some kind of air flow sensor or something. I'm not exactly sure. It is on the air box, so probably. Okay. Just checking all the connections. So there we go, guys. We have our fuel injection reinstalled. All the cables are reinstalled, the electrical harness. And now it's just a matter of kind of buttoning up this hose down here on the air box. Can slide that on there right now. Alright, hose is on. Actually, I just put that clamp on with my fingers. Wasn't too bad after all. We'll get it right back in the same spot where it was seated. So our air box reinstallation is complete. And we have everything else here is good to go. Our fuel rail, our injection, it's all good to go. Okay, guys, I'm going to clean up a little bit here inside the bike. You still see there's some dirt down in here. And I'm going to get that gas tank plugged in. And then we're going to try to give it some juice. So I made a purchase for the bike, guys. Just before I came back for Christmas, I purchased a brand new BikeMaster Platinum battery. Part number's there, MS12-9BS. The FZ6R battery I had in there is a little bit tall. It kind of interferes with the gas tank a little bit. So I actually wanted to order the proper battery just so I don't short anything out on the terminals or anything crazy happens. Now, do yourself a favor, guys. This is going to save you headache, and I'm telling you, the little like bolt and nut on these batteries, it's very easy for this nut to fall loose and end up somewhere in your bike, and you're going to have to dismantle probably half your bike to find it. So there is a solution. Take a piece of heat shrink tubing. Actually, you're going to take two pieces. You can see what I've done over here. You're going to cut that tubing just so it slides in underneath that nut. When you take this bolt out, and I'm going to show you what happens. When you take this bolt out now, You see how that nut doesn't have anywhere to go? It doesn't have anywhere to drop. It sits there on top of the heat shrink tubing. It will save you a lot of hassle, guys. So, small little trick, but do that on both sides of your battery terminals. It'll keep that nut from sliding away, and it's going to save you a lot of headache down the road. Okay, let's go get this battery in the bike. Alright, so I put my battery in, the new battery. I put the tank back in. I've made all the connections. Put some fresh fuel in the bike. And yeah, let's give it a crank. Let's turn it on. I am a little concerned I don't hear the fuel pump priming. Well, it's trying to turn over, guys. It's not turning over. To be honest, I did have this bike started before Christmas. I just came back. It seemed like there was no gas in the tank. Like, I don't know if it evaporated, but I put a little bit more gas in it. It's not wanting to fire up. So, looks like I got to do a little bit of troubleshooting. Let's see what it is. I may know the problem, guys. I remember before, I was tinkering with this tank, and the mistake I made was I did not disconnect the battery, but I was plugging and unplugging this connector. And I do remember hearing like a little bit of a pop, saw a little puff of smoke, but it could be, I'm not sure if you could see that brown pin down in there, the top pin on the right. I believe I have damaged that pin and that wire. It's very, very hard to see, but if you look at the wire is actually exposed here. I believe I melted that wire. So I'm going to have to cut into this harness a little bit because there is literally no slack on this connector. I'm going to have to open up the harness a little bit, follow that wire back, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that wire out of that connector and reconnect it a different way. I'll leave the other two wires in the connector because those pins look good, but that third wire doesn't look so good. So that is my suspicion. But anyways, let me work on that, guys. I'm going to open this little harness up here a little bit, pull the wire back out, and maybe just do a little splicey splice over to this side of the connector. And maybe that's the problem, because the fuel pump did not sound like it was priming. And this is the connector for the fuel pump. And that's where I saw a little poofy spark. So, I don't know. Just without dismantling a whole bunch of stuff, this is the quick stuff. The stuff that I know may possibly be the issue. Alright, I'll keep you updated on this, guys. Success! The bike is up and running. I guess that's a FI light, fuel injection. Not really sure what that is. But our bike is running. Listen to that yosh. Alright, let me shut it off and I'll kind of explain what I found out. Okay, so what I found out, guys, is I was actually indeed correct here on this connector for the fuel pump. I actually opened this harness up. You can see before it was all taped up and everything. I actually opened this whole harness up and I traced the ground wire back from here. The ground wire was kind of melted a little bit. It took all the sheeting off the wire. I traced it all the way back over to here. There's a couple grounds. You can probably see the yellow and black wires over there by my thumb. So that wire literally goes from there to the connector and then to the fuel pump. And I think when I heated that wire up, the pin kind of dislodged a little bit in the connector. So I checked the wire. I put a new piece of heat shrink on that wire that burnt all the insulation off. And I've wrapped it all nice and neat back here in the bike. And I pushed that pin back in the connector, made sure everything was tight. I tested my ground from here to the bottom of the fuel pump under the tank. And turned the key on. Gave it a couple shots.
fired right up. So yeah, if you're working on your fuel system, guys, especially this connector on a ZX-636 2006, make sure to disconnect your battery first. Really, you probably just have to take your negative off. And I didn't do that when I was first playing with the bike. I hot plugged this with the battery connected, and I ended up kind of almost destroying a wire. But it didn't damage anything else on the bike that I'm aware of. The bike is up and running. And let's move on to the next thing. I don't know what it is yet, but our bike runs. Let's give it another quick fire up. The idle's a little cold, it seems. Let's see here. Look at that. Fires right up. Fires right up. Sons of Anarchy right there. Yeah. Anyways, not bad, guys, for theft recovery bike. I expected it to be worse. Other than this little mishap that I caused myself, there's no problem with the bike. Everything is running fine. Idle's a little low. And it kind of does that when you give it too much gas, it shuts off. Don't know why. Maybe you know. If you know why maybe that shuts off under some throttle, drop a comment in the video. Maybe it's the plugs. I don't know. I haven't changed the plugs. I haven't looked at the plugs. I assume they're good. Could just be, hasn't been running a while. Hasn't been running probably a year. Almost a year and a half. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, let me know if you think you know what that problem might be. As soon as I apply some throttle too quickly, the bike will actually stall. All right. What's next? I was also tinkering yesterday with this this fuel injection error code as well, guys. Now, this bike has a diagnostic mode. All you have to do is take this little orange wire that is under your seat and ground that to the negative of your battery. It puts that bike into a diagnostic mode, and it's going to flash an error code on your FI light. It's going to give you a series of long flashes and short flashes. When I did this yesterday, I got a error code of 6 long flashes and 3 short flashes, which is error code 63. According to the manual on error code 63, it is related to this server actuator motor for the exhaust valve. And I actually unplugged these connectors here the other day, this one and the white one underneath, and I plugged them back in, and that error code light went away. Now, today, I could see it's back on. But anyways, that's how you get the bike into Diag mode, guys. You just take this orange wire, you jumper it to the ground of your battery, straight connection, just a little piece of wire, and it will throw your error code. Alright, so I put some cellophane on my gas tank as well, just in case the gas was evaporating through the rag. I don't know, but the tank seemed pretty empty the other day. Now that I know the bike runs and everything is good, well, somewhat good, I'm going to start changing the fluids. So in the next episode, you're probably going to see an oil change and probably some coolant. I noticed this bike does not have any coolant in it right now. The reservoir tank, which is under the gas tank, is empty. And also I quickly looked here in the rad, and it didn't look like there was much coolant in the bike. So that's on the agenda. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let's see what's coming up on this Sons of Anarchy ZX6.